Please welcome Mel Herbert, Professor of Emergency Medicine, founder and CEO of MRAP, and a man who believes in the power of being average.
Oh boy, gotta get my props out here first. First of all, I gotta say, this is ridiculous. There's no way I should be doing this talk. There's at least 100, maybe a few thousand people that are more worthy than me. But to ASAP and to Debbie and Bobby in particular, thank you for asking me what the hell was I going to say. No? Little preamble before we begin, I wrote it down here. First of all, there's going to be a little bit of language, but this is emergency medicine, so get used to it. I don't want to hear any criticism afterwards. Shall we begin? This picture was taken in Chile just a month ago, where emergency medicine is beginning to explode as it is across the world. About 5 years ago, I was asked to give a talk in Australia. Why emergency medicine? Why do emergency medicine? Why do this thing? And I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I spent a lot of time developing this talk, and I've only given it one other time. So I'm going to give that talk again, but then with a really important epilogue that I think is going to be really important to a lot of you in this room. It's important, so here's some summarized history. It's 1963, it's Dallas, Texas. It's a beautiful day. It's around 12:30, and the most powerful man in the world is driving a car through Dealey Plaza and takes a gunshot wound to the head. It is a devastating injury. And he is rushed to the local hospital, the big hospital, Parkland General Hospital. You know it from the Burn formula. And the first person the most powerful man in the world sees after he's had his injury is a second-year surgical resident, barely out of internship. And there's a little room that they take him to because that's the emergency department, a singular room in the bottom of the hospital. There are no attendings there. Attendings don't go to the emergency department in the 60s. They're all upstairs. They've graduated. It's only students, it's interns, it's residents. There are nurses there, but they're not trained in trauma resuscitation. The most powerful man in the world is seen by somebody who doesn't even want to be there. And the world saw this and they asked the question, who will look after me? Who will look after my family when I'm sick and injured if the most powerful man in the world gets looked after by people who don't really want to be there? And of course, at around the same time, there is a war in Vietnam. It's escalating. It's on the TVs throughout the United States. And the returning soldiers are saying, why is it that I can get better care in the jungles of Vietnam than I can on the streets of Los Angeles or in New York or in San Diego? And the people ask the question, if I get injured, if I get sick, who will look after me? And so society started to demand that emergency departments exist. Even me, and I'm a young guy, even in Australia at the time, a lot of the emergency departments, which were rooms, closed the door at 11 o'clock at night, opened up at 9. If you got sick at 3 a.m., you couldn't get into the hospital. It was a crazy time. So we started to open many more emergency departments. But mothers would come back from these departments with their sick children and say, I got terrible care. It was bad. My child died. The doctor who saw me didn't know what they were doing. And I'm not talking about the doctors who'd taken this on as a career. I'm talking about the people who still believed that they could just walk in from another specialty and do emergency medicine because anybody could do it. And they couldn't. Even in my lifetime, during my residency, there were hospitals down the road where it was rotating dermatologists that would look after you and give you terrible care. And society said, this is not okay. And these guys said, this is not okay. We need people that are trained. You can't just have a place. You need the training to do this. And so we did. There's a really great documentary that was done a number of years ago that sort of compresses this concept, this idea of emergency medicine and how it exists. And you can see outside here much more of this in detail, and it's just beautiful stuff, and you have to go and check it out. The first emergency resident in the world was Bruce Janiak. I don't know if he's here. He's a great guy. We're still practicing just a few years ago. The first continuously running academic program was at USC, which is where I'm from. The stories are incredible. So if you want to know why in the corporate emergency medicine exists, it exists because society demanded it. Society demanded that we exist. I don't know about you, but this emergency ER came out when I was a resident, and just listening to that music makes me tachycardic.